Hey there nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and welcome to the edition of Commander Cheapskate Gamer Reviews, the show where we review various products related to the wargaming hobby. And on today's episode, we will take a look at the latest supplement to Games Workshop's Necromunda lineup, which is the Hall of Ancients. We will go over the contents of this book, especially the rule changes for Ironhead Squat Prospector Gangs. And because this video will be a little bit more of a deeper dive, I will put timestamps in the description box down below so that way you can click and navigate to the part of the video that interests you the most. So just to give you guys a little bit of introduction about the Hall of the Ancients, this is a new update for the Ironhead Squat Prospector Gangs. So it looks like that the Games Workshop decided to do an updated book specifically for Ironhead Squat Prospectors. Every single major gang up to this point from the major houses in Necromunda have received one of these updates, and so it's nice to see that they're actually making these kind of releases for individual groups as well. Hopefully in the future they will continue doing this for groups like the Ash Waste Nomads. I feel like they could do a lot with Ash Waste Nomads, especially by giving them other insects to ride upon, which would be really nice. So hopefully they'll do that in the future as well. The nice thing about this book is that this book does feature a lot of lore and fluff, so if you're one of those kind of guys that love reading about the material and the history of a faction, this book is definitely for you as well. Now, if you're purchasing books looking for information for other gangs, I will warn you now that this book is purely designed specifically for Ironhead Squat Prospectors, so there is nothing in here that represents for other gangs. So if you're worried about that, you don't need to worry about that at all because it's not in the book. And finally, we will assess some of the rules that we're missing in other supplements as well, which is actually kind of nice. Especially when it came to the Ironhead session, a lot of new material came out for Ironhead Squat Prospectors, but a lot of the rules were not fully developed and not fully explained out. For example, Techmites, for example. So it's kind of nice that this book actually contains that information that was supposed to be in the other supplements. Alright, so let's get to the contents of the book. So the book does have a lot of lore inside of it, so there's a lot of background information about the Ironhead Squat Prospectors, and if you're really into lore, this book would definitely be for you as well. However, for me, I'm not much of a lore guy. What I was really interested about was the updated Ironhead Squat Prospector lists that are now available for gangs. They've actually done a really good job of actually updating those lists with some new fighters, new weapons, as well as new equipment as well. And speaking of which, they also gave us a brand new vehicle in the form of the Trike that is now available to Ironhead Squat Prospector Gangs. As well as rules to the Techmites, which is like the little machine robots that kind of accompany them. Those act as exotic beasts for this gang. Now, as for the materials that are involved inside the book as well, the material that they actually have for hanger-ons, brutes, vehicles, as well as hired guns are very much similar to the rules that they've had up to this point as well. So, for example, the traditional claim jumper that you can take for this gang, as well as things like sloppers and road docks and ammo jacks, etc. Those are all still exactly the same. They still have access to the Exo Driller, which is the brute that they come for this gang as well, so that's still the same, as well as the Scalving Explorator. That vehicle is also involved in this rule as well, and same with anything like hired guns, so things like hive scum, for example, bounty hunters, as well as house agents. The house agents one's actually quite unique because it's specific to this gang. Now, as for any new Dramatis Personae, there are no new Dramatis Personae for this gang. That's exactly the same too from the Jarlson brothers, who were represented in the Ruins of Yarlin book that came out for the Ironhead Succession. So that part is still there. There's also two brand new scenarios specifically for this faction. So if you really want to engage in those scenarios, those are available for you as well. But the main feature of this book, which I find to be the most important part, is the access to a new specific game mechanic for this gang called the Squat Ancestry rule. And this is the real reason why you want to do this. This actually gives you a lot of abilities that you can unlock for your gang based on the ancestry of your Ironhead Squat Prospector gang. And we'll go into a lot more detail about that because those abilities are quite powerful and it's unique specifically to this gang. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about actually are some of the new fighters that are available now for these gangs as well, and probably the biggest update that they actually made to this is the new fighters that are available to an Ironhead Prospector gang. The one of them, of course, being the Ironhead Squat Exo-Master, which is a brand new champion that's available to these gangs as well. So let's go on and talk about this guy real quick. So he costs 110 credits as well, and his statistic line is very similar to the drill masters that are already available to a gang. However, though, the biggest difference though is that they actually have a +3 weapon skill and a 4+ ballistic skill, which of course the Drill Masters are the opposite. They have a 3+ weapon ballistic skill and a 4+ ballistic skill. So these guys are designed to be your close combat fighters, is what they're actually designed to do. Now there's some good and bad things about the new Ironhead Squat Exo-Master. For example, that you don't have the ability to do group activation, which is actually quite bad because, you know, for most champions, that whole group activation piece is the primary piece why you usually take a champion, so that way they can activate another fighter. So unfortunately, Ironhead Squat Exo-Masters don't have that group activation rule. Now there is a trade-off for that, so they do lose that, but they do gain some other abilities, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Now the big thing that's interesting about these guys, they come with called an exosuit, and the exosuit of course is that huge chunky piece of armor that these guys are actually wearing, which is quite nice. The exosuit actually gives them a 5+ armor save, which is great, and at the same time it also gives them immunity to both blaze as well as red phage. So it's kind of like a hazard suit, except that it gives you that 1 additional armor save, which is kind of nice. So that part is a really great part of that, and plus that exosuit is also included in their cost as well. Unfortunately, you can't mix armors with the exosuit, so that is the only armor you can take. If you want to give these guys a better armor save, you can take things like armored undersuits as well as field armor. Those are some great ways to actually increase the armor save if you want to make these guys a little bit more survivable as well. So that's one of the cool things about these guys. Now, when it comes to their skills, of course, they do actually have a really good access to skill. They do have Wisdom of the Ancients as a primary, which makes sense because they are Ironhead Squat Prospectors, and they actually gain Brawn as a primary skill. Now, Brawn actually might be kind of good for these guys because that way you can act knockback to their attacks, giving them additional, giving them additional strength in the charge and giving them knockback, which is kind of nice. However, the main thing about these guys though is you probably want to use Bulging Biceps, so that way they can use unwieldy weapons single-handedly and have multiple attacks as well, because a bunch of new unwieldy weapons have been unlocked for melee weapons for the Ironhead Prospectors, so that probably do the best, the most on this one. At the same time, we also have Frosty as well as Leadership for those guys as secondary ones, and also we have access to combat instead of shooting for these guys. So Drill Masters get shooting as a secondary, these guys get combat as a secondary instead. Now the neat thing about these guys though, and this is the real reason why I want to take these guys, they have a special rule called Paragon of the Ancestors. And what this does, it gives them an additional post-battle ability, which they must use for their Ancestor ability as well. And like we talked about this earlier with the Ancestry skill, that means these guys can actually potentially use these Ancestor skills twice in every post-battle sequence, and that's extremely important because those Ancestries for your gang could actually have a really good game mechanics for you, and I'll explain those when we actually get to the Ancestry section of these videos. So the new champion, very much worth their credits. So alongside with the new Exo-Masters, we also have the new Exo-Kyn, which is the prospect level fighter for this gang. These guys cost 60 credits a piece as well. So aside, I know when it comes to their equipment, of course, obviously they have the Exo-Suit, which is a great piece of armor for them to use as well. But aside from the Storm Welder, which you can purchase for these guys to use for their shooting attack, they really don't have any shooting attacks available to them. They're primarily dependent upon using close combat weapons from the training post in order to help these guys out. Now they do have access to power pack weapons on top of the powerful melee weapons they get access to, so that part is quite nice, and we'll talk a little bit more about those new power pack weapons. They're pretty much exactly the same from the original books that were released earlier with Book of the Outlands, except they have a brand new one called a Bolt Splitter, but we'll talk about that a little bit more in detail when we get to the new weapons section of this video. So they're primarily going to be your close combat fighters, and they do have some really good access to some close combat weapons, and we'll talk about those specifically when we get to that section of the video as well. The neat thing about these guys though is that they can actually take 2 exotic beasts apiece. They can take 2 Techmite Autovaders or 2 Techmite Exovaders. And we're going to talk about those Techmites a little bit more here in the video a little bit, because these are the exotic beasts for the gang, and they actually have some really interesting game mechanics, and these are the guys that can take those guys in mass. So if you're really a fan of the Techmites, this would be a great way for you to actually build those up in your gang. And speaking of Techmites, let's go ahead and talk about them real quick. So this is the exotic beasts that are available for your gang. Now usually when it comes to exotic beasts, most of the time they actually don't really serve much of a purpose for most gangs. I mean, there's a couple of them that are actually quite good, but for these guys though, they're actually quite handy for what they can do. Just to give you guys an example of how many access to these guys you have, every Charter Master and Drill Master can field up to 2 Autovaders, 2 Excavators, as well as 1 Oculi, and every Exo-Master and Exo-Kyn can field up to 2 Autovaders and 2 Excavators, which means you can bring a lot of individual like little mini bots to fight for you on the battlefield, which could actually round out your numbers quite a bit. Anybody who's ever played a gang of Ironhead Squat Prospectors knows that you're always outnumbered, so bringing these exotic beasts can kind of help level the playing field a little bit, especially if you're using them for the way that they're intended to be used. For example, let's talk about the Autovator real quick. So the Autovator costs 45 credits, but the great thing about these guys is that they can actually re-roll loot rolls whenever you perform a bypass loot casket basic action, alright? And the nice thing about these things is, of course, if you find a loot casket, they can use that, they can re-roll the loot and actually get better loot for your gang as well. There's also, they have the skill access from the squat access skill tree, which is called There's Always Another Secret, which means it adds another D6 times credit when opening a loot casket, meaning that if your Autovator actually use it pretty well, they can actually pay for themselves within the very first scenario they're actually using it, which is quite nice as well. They can also carry a single power pack weapon as well, which makes them even more attractive because there's a little bit of variety of power pack weapons that you can use. Now, excavators, they're just a little bit different. They cost 55 credits as well. Now, they do have the same loot casket ability as the Autovator, but there's no additional bonus credits for these guys, alright? The nice thing about these, though, is that they actually have the Nobody Pushes Kin Around special rule, which means they're never moved by weapon traits or skills, and they always pass initiative tests whenever they have to take a stand in prone within half an inch of a platform. Think of these guys as more like your close combat support for your Ironhead Squat Prospectors. And the reason why is because these guys can actually take up to 2 additional power pack weapons in order to bring to the fight. So think of them as kind of like your backup close combat fighters for your champions, as well as your leaders, as well as for your Exo-Kyn. So there's a nice thing about those. In my opinion, however, the most important Techmite in this group is the Oculi. The Oculi cost 40 credits as well, and the reason why I like these guys is because they can actually travel within 18 inches of their owner, and the reason why that's so nice is because they have a 7-inch movement allowance, and they have the fly special rule as well. Anybody who's ever played Ironhead Squat Prospectors knows that the Squat Prospectors are quite slow. So having that 7-inch movement and being able to fly multiple levels is really great for taking on objectives as well. In addition, if they're within 6 inches of an enemy fighter that's actually hiding or trying to take cover, they remove cover penalties when you try to shoot at them from long distances. So Oculi are definitely worth their weight in gold, in my opinion. So let's talk about some of the new weapons that are now available to the Ironhead Squat Prospectors. One of them, of course, is the Bolt Spitter, which is going to cost you 40 credits, and it's also used as a rapid-fire sidearm at Strength 4 with -1 AP. You can put this on a couple of your fighters as well. It's nice and cheaper than most options. At the same time, it gives you a kind of decent shooting attack. It is only like a really short-range weapon. I believe only 4 inches is the first thing to go into. So because of that, it's not great for long-range shooting, but if you want to actually just add a little additional shooting attack or additional close combat attack at Strength 4, it's a great investment for that. Another thing that's also available for Charter Masters and Drill Masters is the Ironhead Inferno Pistol, which costs 160 credits. It does have the Melta sidearm trait, which is kind of sidearm trait with the Melta special rules, which is nice. It's also rapid fire 1. It's got a 4-inch short range and a 7-inch long range as well, and it does exactly the same kind of damage as a Melta gun. Now, it's quite expensive for what it can do, but you know, having a Melta sidearm with rapid fire, that's just beast as well. We also have additional unwieldy weapons additionally for close combat fighters. One of them is a 2-handed chain axe that costs about 40 credits as well. It's got strength +2 as well as -1 AP, 2 damage, and rending. Unfortunately, I feel that the original chain axe actually probably outforms it better because it does have parry as well as disarm, but you know, it's not bad to actually have a unwieldy weapon like that. And we also have the Ironhead Grenade Launcher as well. Now this one is a little bit different because it packs what's called seismic grenades, and seismic grenades actually cause concussion for your opponents as well. They do cost 50 credits, so that's the great thing about those, but unfortunately the way the rules are written, I'm not really sure if you can take other grenade types with it, so that's the only downside about an Ironhead Grenade Launcher. But if you don't mind having that blast template with concussion, it's actually quite good. It gives you a nice little blast area effect weapon. The next weapon they also have too, of course, are the 2-handed power picks. You actually see these in the new weapons upgrade packs are now available for these guys, which is actually really great. It's actually got 75 credits as well, which is kind of nice. It gives you +1 strength as well as -3 AP. It's also got a pulverize of normal power pick, but it does 2 damage, which is quite nice. This is really good high armor penetrating close combat attack as well with the unwieldy special rule. We also have a 2-handed power axe as well, which is available to everybody in your gang except except for the Digger, which is the Juvie level fighter for your game that costs 65 credits. This has a strength +2 disarm attack as a normal power axe and also gains 2 damage, but it's only -1 AP. So, you know, it's actually pretty good, pretty decently priced for the price you're getting it for. At the same time, we also have access to the Ironhead shotgun, combat shotgun as well, which is actually quite good. It costs 40 credits as well. It's also got rapid fire 1, which makes it kind of great too. It's also strength 4, which is quite good. And the statistics are very similar to a solid slug shotgun from a normal shotgun that's used in Necromunda, but it's got rapid fire, just like most Ironhead Squat Prospector weapons. And of course, we have the Heavy Melta, which costs 150 credits. It is a Ironhead Melta gun with pretty much the same statistics. However, though, it's got longer range. It's got a 9-inch short range and 18-inch long range, which is great too. And it's actually kind of scarier than Multi-Melta because it does have the rapid fire ability, which is kind of great as well. So if you're worried about taking on things like enemy vehicles and stuff, you could definitely use that to do that. However, it is the only person who could use that is your Exo-Master, which is the champion, the new champion that came out for this gang, and his ballistic skill is quite, you know, meh for the most part. But you know, the nice thing about this Heavy Melta though, if you want to get within range, you'll be able to use those close range modifiers and take out enemies as well. Continuing other weapons, we also have access to the Heavy Drill, which is an Exo-Master exclusive, which costs 35 credits as well. It's got your strike at your normal strength allowance, so strength 4. It's also got AP -1 as well as 2 damage with rending, which is actually quite good for 35 credits. However, though, you do have access to better weapons instead, so that might be something you might not want to really use too much on your Exo-Masters. Now, when it comes to your Exo-Kyn, of course, like we said, you actually have some pretty unique weapons that the Exo-Kyn actually get access to. So aside from the normal power pack weapons they get, they have access to what's called the Excavator Hammer, which costs 50 credits. It does have the Windwildy trait, but it has a 2-inch versatile trait. Now, obviously, you're going to strike at -1 against outside of engagement from base to base, but it's still a 2-power hammered weapon. It's got +2 to the strength characteristics, -1 AP, with strength with damage 3. So that's going to really tear apart enemies really bad, especially with that high strength, high damage weapon. You could use this thing to wreck most light as well as medium vehicles as well. So anything that goes up against it, of course, is going to really just smash it right in the face. Plus, at the same time, it's really just good overall weapon in my opinion. It's a really good way to go. You also have access to what's called the Hydraulic Drill. Now, the Hydraulic Drill is the best budget option for an Exo Squat, and the reason why that's the case is because it only gives you +1 strength and has Entangled, but that's really about it. There's nothing much really great about it aside from the price. Now, with that being said, it is the cheapest of the new weapons the guys have access to, but for 10 credits more, you can get the much more superior Rock Saw, in my opinion. It costs 35 credits for your Exo-Kyn. It's got +1 strength, -1 AP, as well as 2 damage with rending as well. And plus, you know, it's only 10 credits more, and you get the +1 strength modifier, which is also kind of nice, and a little bit better damage, in my opinion. So it makes it one a really good close combat weapon for these guys. And those are the brand new weapons that are available to the already amazing list of weapons that the Ironhead Squat Prospectors have access to. So like before, we have nothing new in terms of vehicle crews. The Ironhead Squat Gearhead is still the crew of choice for all of your fighters. Same thing with hanger-ons, brutes, and all that kind of stuff. But this new vehicle, though, the new Zvenotar Scout Trike, this is the one of the cool things that are great on the new list. These guys cost 105 credits, which is actually quite good. It has an 8-inch movement allowance, as well as toughness of 5 in the front, 4 on the side, as well as 4 in the rear. It's got 3 hull points, as well as a 5-up armor save as well. It's also got +5 for handling, which also makes it quite good. At the same time, you can also purchase a Techmite Oculi for this vehicle as well. And since this thing's such a fast mover, that Techmite Oculi would be great to pair with this thing, so that way you can scout out ahead, mark enemies with your Oculi, and of course engage with either other shooters from your gang, or more importantly, use the vehicle weapons that are available on the Zvenotar Scout Trike. Now, the Zvenotar Trike actually comes with twin-linked Ironhead auto guns, twin-linked Ironhead bolt guns, or twin-linked Melta guns, which is quite nice. Now, the Melta gun, of course, is quite nice because you get that re-roll with the twin-linked special roll attached to it. So if you do make a really bad ammo roll, if you want to avoid a bad ammo roll, you can actually use that. Same thing with the Ironhead bolt gun. Ironhead bolt guns are actually great with rapid fire too, which is fantastic. But having that ability to re-roll any one of your firepower dice in order to get rid of an ammo check, absolutely fantastic as well. Plus, the Ironhead autogun is not bad either, having 2 rapid fire and having a really reliable ammo save. So this is a great way to actually kind of scout ahead and suppress your enemies like always. At the same time, of course, you do have, of course, the access to the Scalving Explorator, which is exactly the same rules that were released in the Ruins of Yarnland. Now, last thing we're going to talk about real quick is the Squat Ancestry, which is actually the unique ability that this gang actually has, and in my opinion, this is the real reason why you want to get this book. The reason why is because the Squat Ancestry actually has some really good benefits for Ironhead Squat Prospector Gangs, and there's some really unique things that can do. So your Ancestry in the book, you have access to 9 different mining clans, which means that in these 9 mining clans, what ends up happening is that whatever Ancestry you pick, you have access to 3 special post-battle actions. All right, you could choose any one of those you want to in order to do so. Your leader or champion gains 1 post-battle action as always, but they can purchase additional post-battle actions from their mining clans by spending experience points in order to do so. And some of these post-battle actions from your mining clan can be quite powerful as well. And like I said before, your Exo-Master has that Paragon of the Ancestor special rule, which means they automatically get additional ability with that special rule on top of that. So they can potentially take 2 of these for your guys' mining clans as well. And like I said, there are 9 different mining clans, and each mining class has 3 different battle post actions you can use, which is actually quite good. So let's go on and talk about those real quick. So first of all, you have the English mining clan, which basically allows you guys to do one of 3 things. You could either allow you to sell goods at full price, so that way you can sell any capture equipment that you might find, or you may automatically free any captive you end up having by paying 2d6 times turn credits, only half of which goes to the other gang, and you, of course, just lose the other half for your guys. Or you can add a free squad digger to the gang roster at any time, and so if one of your guys gets deleted, of course, which is kind of nice, because English is quite good for like resupplying your manpower, just because unfortunately for Ironhead Squat Prospectors, whenever they lose a fighter, it's quite disastrous because they're so expensive and they're hard to replace. So they'll be kind of a good way to get your guys to get captured or guys to get eliminated off your roster. Then we have Skagfrid in Mining Clan, which is another good one. Their abilities allow them to either 1, get additional d6 times 10 credits for their territory, in exchange for not getting any boons for other than income. So if you're looking for additional credits, or if you only have a territory that only just gives you credits, that'd be one way to get additional money for your gang. At the same time, you can also get a free 2d3 times turret credit that must be spent on vehicle, war gear, or upgrades, which is the second one. So if you have vehicles that need to be upgraded and you want to do that, you could just use that action to get those additional credits, which is quite nice. It gives you anywhere between, 20 to 60 credits, which would be great. You could use get things like additional armor plating or whatever the case may be as well. And of course, the last one, of course, is that you can add +3 to the availability level whenever you're seeking rear or legal equipment. So if you want to get things from the trading post and you want to alter the rarity level, you can use one of your post-battle action sequences to increase those rarity values to kind of help you out. Then we have the Svardhold mining clan, which is another group. Now their post-battle action sequences are more about ferocity as well as actually getting cybernetics for your fighters, which is kind of nice. The first one, of course, allows you to give themselves the Berserker skill for their next battle, which is actually quite nice as well, giving that additional bonuses to your close combat attacks. So if you got like a lot of Exo-Kyn in your gang, this could be a great way to get them a little bit more deadly. At the same time, you can purchase any bionic if it's a common rarity. So if you take a lasting injury for your gang and you want to replace it with bionic, those are now common, which is quite nice. And you could also, for your third one, give any newly hired fighter D3 experience points when they're added to the roster as well, which would be a good way to actually bump up the experience gains for some of your new recruits for your gang as well. And then we have Tapforkelt, I believe, Tapforkite, I believe is how you pronounce that. That's another group as well. Now they have 3 post-battle action sequences you could take as well. They can either 1, permanently give one of their weapons the Mastercrafted trait, which allows you to reroll a missed attack for close combat or shooting, which it's just a powerful ability just in itself, which is really nice. Or you can reduce the cost of negotiating repairs for any one of your vehicles by 2d6 times 10 credits, which is another powerful post-battle action sequence. Or one of the greatest ones, of course, is the third one, which is give D3 friendly fighters the infiltrate skill for the next battle. That one is quite nice because, as you guys are fully aware, Ironhead Squat Prospectors, of course, are notoriously slow. So having them have three of those guys to be able to infiltrate into battle is actually quite nice as well. Same thing with any of your vehicles. If you take any damage to vehicles, having that additional money to repair your vehicles is quite nice. But that ability to give a weapon the Mastercrafted trait, I mean, any weapon, and make it permanent, that's the real punishment on that one. Then we have the Helmaith Mining Clan, and those guys are actually my personal favorite. I think this is really the coolest one because these guys are supposed to be like pirates, is what they basically live. They live in the Poison Sea and the Sump Sea, and they operate from like submarines, which is kind of cool. Now with these guys, of course, is for one of their first ones, okay, you basically can lend your fighters onto what they would call Sump Safaris, and they gain D3 experience points for their fighters or go to recovery based on the leadership test of your gang leader. Alright, so if they pass the leadership test, these guys earn D3 experience points, or they go to recovery if you fail your leadership test. And with having leadership characteristics of 5+ and 6+, that's not going to be a challenge for you. Most of your guys are going to be getting experiences like as nobody else. Or you can make a leadership test, a higher D3 Hive Scum, for free. Now that one, in my opinion, is the most powerful ability of this mining clan, because you're always going to be outnumbered as an Ironhead Squat Prospector. So if you want some really expendable fighters that you can send out there to basically be cannon fodder, so that way your fighters are protected, really nice. And like I said before, with a 5+ leadership characteristic for your leader or 6+ for your champions, you're always going to get that ability, which is quite nice as well. Or there's another one, of course, that every gang that participates in the battle adds D6 ×10 credits to their stash. That includes your enemies as well. So if you're looking for a way to get yourself some more credits, it's also another really good one as well. Helmaith, all the way. If I was to actually play a Squat Prospector Gang, that would be my choice all the way. Then we have Snorag, which is another mining clan that you can choose. One of their post-battle action sequences, you can automatically force your next mission to take place in pitch black conditions, which is actually quite nice. So if you have photo goggles or infrared sights and your opponent doesn't, it'd be a good way to kind of skew things into your favor. Another one, of course, that can allow one of their exotic beasts to move freely throughout impassable terrain, which is great for your Techmites, especially for your Oculite Techmites. They can go through things really quickly and also find, either seize objectives or find your enemies, that sort of thing. Or the very third one, of course, you gain all the boons and income from a territory twice in exchange for not being able to use it for the next 2 weeks in a campaign. Now that one is actually very situationally based. I mean, if you have a really good piece of territory that's a really good boon and you really need that support, that could really help you out. On the other hand, though, not being able to access that territory for another 2 campaign weeks, it could be kind of pricey. So I would recommend using that one very sparingly and just kind of analyze your situation to see if that help you out or not. Then we have Trocken Mining Clan as well. Those guys basically gain additional 2d3 ×10 credits that can be spent on common war gear and weapons from your trading posts. A second post action sequence, of course, you could boost one weapon of your fighter's exotic beast, so that way you can actually increase it, make it stronger, or gain d6 ×10 credits if a fighter passes intelligence tests. And they go to recover if they fail, of course, which is going to be kind of easy for you to do that because they actually have pretty decent intelligence scores, so you probably be able to get rid of that one as well. And then we have the Vasinki Mining Clan, which is one of the last ones, of course. And these guys, of course, basically live in a giant sky fortress of all things. But they can have fighters perform combat drops and arrive as reinforcement in ash waste battles. So if these guys aren't mounted vehicles, they can drop in like they're parachuting in like they're Caradron Overlords or something like that. The second ability, of course, you gain a second roll when determining which scenarios play, which can help you out determine especially if a scenario is towards your advantage. And lastly, of course, you can petition a house agent for free, which is quite great because you actually have 2 really powerful Dramatis Personae house agents that you can actually include in your gang, which is quite nice for that one. The very last one was called a Splinter Mining Clan, which basically is a custom one. And basically, one of your first post-battle actions you can choose is to have a friendly fighter reroll a lasting injury. Really great, powerful ability right there on that one. Or you could change over one of their skills, which is really quite nice too. So any one of those are great. Or you could choose any other ancestry ability from any other clan and use it for yourself. So Splinter Mining Clan is actually quite versatile, especially if you're taking lasting injury rolls and if you want to change up skills, which are quite nice as well. And at the same time, having the ability to take any one of those ancestry skills for yourself could be really good. For example, you could take that Helmaith one, which you can recruit additional Hive Scum for yourself if you want to do that, and then keep the other 2. Also really good, powerful ability as well. So in conclusion, should you buy the Howl of Ancients? It kind of depends on your situation. If you're playing Ironhead Squat Prospectors, then absolutely you should, because they have some really great rules, really upgrades, as well as some really interesting game mechanics for this gang. And if you're playing Ironhead Squat Prospector Gang, this book is definitely for you. If you're not an Ironhead Squat Prospector Gang, by all means, skip it. You really don't need to have any more information on that as well. If you are playing Ironhead Squat Prospector Gang and you're using these supplemental rules from the other supplements aside from this one, you can still be a very competitive gang without the Hall of the Ancients, alright? So, just realize you want to have access to some of the upgraded fighters as well as some of the clan rules that they have for your mining clans. So you can still play without it if you want to. I mean, these books are not cheap. They're kind of pricey. The cheapest one's $35, which is US, which is on the digital way, which is how I purchased my book. I purchase it through the digital medium because it's cheaper. So if it is an issue for you, just realize you don't necessarily need to have it. You can actually use the other rules already that are available out there, and that can help you out. The nice thing about this, though, is that it gets all the other rules from the other supplements and it puts it in one place, which is quite nice. So instead of going to 4 or 5 different books to find information about your Iron Squat Prospectors, it's all found in one, so that is quite nice. At the same time, those updated lists with new fighters, new weapons, and new abilities is actually quite nice as well, which is also why I suggest that if you do play an Ironhead Squat Prospector Gang, you should take this book. So that part is nice. And lastly, of course, that squat mining clan's Ancestry. That is a real game changer and opens up a lot of avenues for support to help out an Ironhead Squat Prospector Gang. And in my opinion, that's probably the most valuable piece of information that's available into this book as well. So as always, if it's up to you, it kind of depends on your situation. If you're an Ironhead Squat Prospector, I say get it very cheaply if you can, the cheapest way possible. If you are an Ironhead Prospector and don't want to do it, that's fine. You can still play your game like always. I mean, it's not absolutely necessary for you to have it. And of course, if you don't play Ironhead Squat Prospectors, then you can of course just skip it, because there's nothing new that's going to help you out in any way, shape, or form. So that's good for this video. As you guys, as always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is invaluable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this week, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.